You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, The Voice, Jeff Tucker.
I eat filet mignon 7 times a day. My bathtub's filled with Perrier. What can I say? This is a life. I buy a dozen cars when I'm in the mood. I hire somebody to chew my food. I'm an up and three mobile dude. This is a life.
I went out to this event the other day. It was supposed to be the final the final thing to do at the end of my vacation, because I went to Las Vegas for a few days and then I hung around the house, and then Sunday night I went to the theme park adventure mixer at Don the Beachcombers in Long Beach, and it was supposed to be like, the big capper of my vacation, and then I will head back to work at Knott's, and that's the way vacation goes. So it didn't quite work out that way. The next day I got very sick. The day after that I ended up in the hospital, and I spent the next 3 or 4 days basically asleep. I would get up, I would take some pills or one pill, and then I would go right back to sleep. So, yes, I missed an entire week of episodes just because I was so sick. It was very strange. I sat in the emergency room and I told the doctor, and he comes in, what seems to be the problem? I said, I got the flu. And he goes, you don't have the flu. You don't have a fever, so you don't have the flu. And the catalyst for going in, because, I'm a regular, normal guy. I don't like hospitals. I don't like needles. I'm fine. I don't need any help. Thank you. But I got up Tuesday morning and I started, if you're squeamish, maybe you should skip over this part. I started vomiting very violently. And I hadn't eaten anything, so you know what dry heaves are like, and it just, oh my God, it hurt so bad. And I had to go to the hospital. So what happens is, as soon as I'm done with that spell of vomiting, I had about 20 or 25 minutes of clarity. So I told Rachel, I said, as soon as I'm ready, let's go. So we go down to the urgent care. Remember when it used to be called the emergency room? Now it's called urgent care. I feel like George Carlin, he would always do those things about how the same thing gets renamed over and over again. But now it's called urgent care. So I go into urgent care and I'm waiting and I'm watching the clock and I'm waiting and I'm watching the clock and I'm waiting and Rachel's in line and I'm waiting. And I sit down. Finally, they bring me in and they're starting to do my vitals. They're going to take my blood pressure and stuff. And I looked at the woman and I said, time's up. I need a restroom right now. So I, raced over to the bathroom, vomited again, or at least tried to, and then collapsed. And that's when the doctor came in and he said, you don't have the flu. You got a stomach virus. There's nothing we can do for you. What can we do for you? I said, I need something for this nausea or I'm going to die. So he gave me these great pills and I didn't vomit again after that. So God bless those pills. But I think the side effect of them was it made you, tired. So I slept a lot and I'm not used to doing that. Like I like to sleep, but every time I sleep in, I get sweaty hands. Like I'm wasting my time in this bed, sleeping feels great. When you wake up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m., you go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, look at the clock, and you go, oh, yeah, I got X number of hours left to go. This is going to be great. I mean, that might be the equivalent of the adult Christmas morning, is finding out you've got X number of hours left to sleep. Now, the opposite works, and we've all had this, where you wake up like 4 minutes before your alarm goes off and you're like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Oh my God. There's no sense going back to sleep. I might as well get up and turn the alarm off before it even goes off. So, I have a love-hate relationship with sleep. I love laying in bed and doing nothing, but I hate laying in bed and doing nothing, if that makes sense. And I felt really lazy last week, even though I was ill. Like, there was still part of me that was like, I should be doing something. You know, the house piled up and chores piled up, and I didn't have any shows to put up. And I was supposed to be banking these shows so that I have something to put up just for that very instance. But that just isn't the case, because when I get an episode done, I put it up. I don't sit on it, because usually, even though if I'm reviewing a movie or something that's not current, I usually talk about something that's current. So there's a little bit of urgency, not to get that episode out there, but I can't sit on it for 2 weeks, because I don't know how I'm going to feel in 2 weeks. The whole thing may have passed over, whatever I'm ranting and raving about, right? Anyways, sorry to bore you with my health, but it just goes to show again that we're all the same. We all have the same problems and issues. And if you want to listen to Homestuck episode 12, I did that. That was the first episode I did after being ill, and boy, do I sound it. And I'm hardly in it, because doing this show pushes my voice to its extreme, and I simply didn't have it to push. But I thought that was interesting. Got to do an episode. So thankfully, my co-hosts on that are at a point where they're not so nervous anymore, and they can take over the show. We did an episode last night, and I was sitting there thinking, gosh, they're just running with it. They don't need to be prompted anymore, and that feels really good. But for those of you who are not Homestuck fans, who are listening to those episodes because I chime in once in a while, sorry I have not chimed in the last two as much as possible, because I haven't had the energy. But I'm back. I'm ready to go. We're going to crank out episodes. I dropped way down in the listings on Podomatic simply because I have no new product out. So we're going to try to rectify that. But like I said, I was at the Theme Park Adventure mixer. That was so much fun. Rick and Johanna always put on such a fun event for theme park enthusiasts to get together. Everybody drinks and has snacks, and Rick gives out prizes. But it's mostly just about hanging out and meeting people. And this is the first time I've been to one of these since I launched this show. So not only do I know people, via my work in the theme park industry, but now people know me even more because of this show. Because the appearances I have on the season pass are, I represent knots, so you don't always get the real things I want to say, because I'm always cognizant that I represent the park when I do that show. So on this, I'm not representing anybody but me. So you're getting a more in-depth look. I mean, obviously, I talk for hours about what I feel about movies and pop culture and yada, 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 right? But it was interesting to have people come up and know me in a way that has never been before. Like, one guy came up and he just started immediately, no preamble, no nothing. He just started talking to Rachel about the time his wife found underwear in the wash. And I was like, oh my gosh, the show really does reach people, and they do listen. And the most interesting conversation I had, and I had a ton of conversations with a lot of people, finally got to meet Sean Marshall and his wife from Parks and Cons, which was great because we interact so much on the internet. To finally, meet was interesting and fun, and could have talked to him all night just about this and that, because I was remarking on how different his show is from mine, in that he goes to an event and he gets it up on the internet pretty quickly, whereas mine, I'm reviewing a movie today from 1984, so I'm not quite as current as Parks and Cons. But no, the most interesting conversation I had was a young guy who just wanted to talk about the show and this and that. And then while we were talking, he just sort of looked at me and he said, sometimes I look at how long the show is, because you can see that, on the on your whatever you're listening on. And he's like, some of them, I cannot believe that you talk for that long. I was like, yeah, me too, And most of the time, 99%, there are no breaks. I just turn the mic on, and sometimes I pause when I have to cough. But for those of you that have kept track of how often I take drinks during the show, that I don't turn it off. Speaking of which, like I know that Doug Barnes, who does the season pass, he edits forever on his shows. Like he makes them sound so professional and so, nice and succinct. And mine are just like, I talked and here they are, warts and all. But that's my niche. My niche is raw and unedited. So that's what you're getting. And you know how I hate people who don't get to the topic. I'm almost 10 minutes in. I haven't even started talking. This episode is for Michael Bondi, one of my Patreon pledgers, and a really nice guy. He's pledged a few months in a row to get me to review movies that he picked, and he gave me a big list to choose from. So I apologize, Michael. I know this has taken forever, and that's just the way the world works. This was supposed to be last Tuesday's episode, but instead I was giving an interview to a guy in a lab coat. But no, I did watch Sunday before the theme park event. I did watch Johnny Dangerously, which is a film from 1984, stars Michael Keaton. And it's actually got a lot of people in it. But I had a weird relationship with Johnny Dangerously before the movie even came out. I was childhood friends. One of my best childhood friends was Carl Harmon. There were many years that Carl and I were inseparable. He was always Han Solo, and I was always Luke Skywalker. And we did everything together. And his mom... I think she worked in finance. Like my mom worked in finance, so that was probably the connection. But whereas my mom worked at a finance company, Carl's mom worked at 20th Century Fox in some capacity. And there were some cool perks of having her work there. And you know what? The misconceptions were huge because she once took me to the 20th Century Fox Christmas employee party right on the back lot. And God, how much fun that was. They had carnival rides. They had like cotton candy and popcorn vendors, all, no charge. It was all for the employees for Christmas. And of course, only in California can you have an outdoor Christmas party for your employees that involves everything about a carnival, right? I don't think you could have that in Boston in Christmas time. But I remember we met Jamie Farr, who played Klinger on MASH. He was signing autographs. And I was at an age, I must have been, I was going to say 8, maybe 8, almost 9, like pretty young. And my perception of the movies was warped. Like when they told us we were going to 20th Century Fox for the Christmas party, I just assumed there would be X-Wings and TIE fighters parked out front. Like, I just figured, well, that's where they made Star Wars. So I bet Darth Vader's there. Now, I got Klinger from MASH, which was pretty cool, but I didn't get Star Wars. And they showed us, the sound stages where MASH was filmed. And I just remember thinking, on the show, it looks like you're outside with helicopters and such. How does it all fit in a building? I had to be explained. And those were my first forays into the reality of motion picture and television production. But we got to tour some of the outdoor sets that are on the Fox lot and ride those rides, and that was a good time. And then on the way out, they gave every kid a gift, and I got some sort of collector die-cast car, not a Hot Wheel size, but the much bigger size. So that was a good time. And then a few years later, and why I'm getting to this, she gave my mom a call and said, hey, they're filming a movie on one of the back lots. It's called Johnny Dangerously, and it's some sort of mob movie. And I guess they had a scene, and I tried to watch. There were a few scenes in the movie where there were fruit stands and vegetables and such. But Carl's mom said they told all the employees we could have this food because it's not going to keep. So I remember Carl's mom bringing us over 2 giant 10-pound bags of potatoes. And my mother made baked potatoes and French fries and mashed potatoes. And every time I ate them, I was like, these potatoes were in a movie. Oh, that's the coolest thing ever. My potatoes were in a movie. Now, the interesting thing is that when Johnny Dangerously came out, I didn't see it in the theater. It was one of those films I just missed. And probably because, I think I've told you guys, from like 1977 to, oh my gosh, 85 or 86, like I was really only into genre pictures. Like it had to have an alien or a time machine or a robot or a pirate or something in it that gave me that hook. And Johnny Dangerously, it didn't have that. So I didn't see it in the theater. I don't remember having any notion. And you know what? If I'd asked my mom to take me, I'm sure she would have, because this is the woman who dropped me off to see Heart Beeps. Like, have you ever seen Heart Beeps? The Andy Kaufman robot movie? It is unwatchable. It is 80 minutes. I tried to watch it not that long ago because I'm a big Andy Kaufman fan, and I couldn't get through it. 80 minutes, and I simply couldn't get through it. Nothing happens. But the point is, my mother took me to see any movie I wanted to see. So it must not have been on my radar, Johnny Dangerously. So I discovered Johnny Dangerously the way a lot of people did, because I looked at the box office. It only did 17 mil. You know, that's not a lot of money against a $9 million budget. So it was not a hit. But I discovered it like a lot of people did, which was at the video store. And you know where I'm going with this. When it was announced that Michael Keaton was going to be Batman, suddenly all of his movies became interesting to me and to a lot of nerds on the planet. So we sought them out, you know, Mr. Mom, Gung Ho, The Squeeze, Clean and Sober, Johnny Dangerously. I am not reading these, folks. I am visually floating through the video store and looking at the boxes. You ever watch Sherlock? You ever watch Sherlock? And Sherlock's always talking about his mind palace, where he puts all of his memories for storage. That was also featured very prominently in the Hannibal novel, the sequel to Silence of the Lambs, where Hannibal has a mind palace that he puts all these memories in. And you know what's funny is I think I've been using that my whole life without really knowing what it was. Because when I have memories, I actually see them on a time scale. Like a visual representation of a time scale. I know that sounds weird, but that's the only way I can really describe how I see things. And when I talk about movies, and I talk about the movies that really made an impact on my life up until, you know, if I go all the way up to when I quit working Blockbuster, 90, 91, when I do that, I'm actually in the video store of my mind, floating through the racks and looking at all the titles. And that's how I can remember it so well. Like, I just go right to the section, you know? So if the intellectual version is the Mind Palace, the nerd version is the Mind Blockbuster. I have a Mind Blockbuster. And yes, the employees are rude, just like in real life. But I discovered Johnny Dangerously, you know, that way. And I remember my friend Joe being a real fan of this movie and goading me into watching it over and over and over again. So I'm pretty sure I had the laser disc of Johnny Dangerously, which is great because the cover has really nice Drew Struzan art. And if you know Drew Struzan, if you like movie posters, you know who Drew Struzan is. He's the most prolific, the best movie poster artist of all time. If there's an iconic poster, Drew probably painted it. Most notably, the Back to the Future poster, among many, many others. But, yeah, Johnny Dangerously, 1984, directed by Amy Heckerling. This is, again, one of those cases where a director has a big movie and the studio basically says you can make anything you want. Now, Amy Heckerling had made, are you ready? Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You know, that's a classic. You know, an almost perfect movie. Maybe it is perfect. And I'll get around to reviewing that at some time because talk about a great movie. So when Fox told her she could do what she wanted, she took a risk. You know, we'd already had Airplane, which parodied disaster movies, but here's a movie that parodies gangster movies, you know? And for the most part, Johnny Dangerously really works. Like, it's a very funny, sharp movie. And it's anchored by a very good performance by Michael Keaton, who at the time, you know, he'd done Mr. Mom. I think this is pre-Gung Ho. So he hadn't really been defined other than he was a comedic actor. He hadn't had that role-defining part, you know, that career-defining role. He wouldn't get that really until Batman, you know. But once you do Batman, I mean, look what just happened. He just won. He was in Best Picture, Birdman, which is basically a parody of Batman and all the trappings of becoming a superhero. So maybe he's finally thrown off those shackles. But wouldn't the big irony be that Warner Brothers sees the value in a second Batman series and has Keaton back as The Dark Knight Returns? Or, you know, it doesn't have to be a $200 million special effects extravaganza. It can just be Batman as a detective. Get Keaton back in the cowl, man. That would be the greatest. And how funny was it during the Oscars, if you watch, during Everything Is Awesome, Batman came out, and it was deliberately the Keaton version of Batman with a few changes. But it wasn't the Dark Knight Batman. The cowl was Keaton. But he really does a great job in Johnny Dangerously. And for the most part, everybody in the cast is firing on all cylinders. This is the story, and it's a lot like Goodfellas. It's about a young kid who is trying to help his parents, help his mom. So he takes a job with the local mob boss and ends up joining the ranks and ascending to the top. I mean, Goodfellas would come out a few years later and tell basically the same story in a serious tone. But Johnny Dangerously is a big goof. You know, Johnny doesn't want to join the mob until the doctor tells him his mom has some ailment, and they're always ridiculous, like, you know, her salivary glands need to be replaced, and whatever it is, the money is exactly what the mob boss is going to pay him. Like, it's very funny. And Keaton shows up in the beginning as a pet shop owner who's telling the tale to this young kid of how he joined the ranks of the criminal underworld and trying to keep this kid, because the kid was trying to shoplift an animal. I think it was a cat or a puppy. It's very funny. But Johnny Dangerously lives in this weird world where they used to make comedies like this, and they don't make them anymore because they all have to be gross. And you know, I've gone into that diatribe before. But Johnny Dangerously features one shot of, you know, nude buttocks. It's not even one of the main characters. It's a lesser character during the chase scene in the car. But mostly, it's a lot of really smart double entendre. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's slick, clever writing. It doesn't have to be dirty. I mean, even look at what's his name? The other crime boss. I'm having trouble remembering his name. He's very funny, but he's supposed to be like this foul mouth guy, but he doesn't know any American curse words. He gets them all wrong. You know, he says fargen, tear down that fargen wall, tear down that fargen wall for these bunch of ice holes. You know, very, very funny stuff. Dangerously is one of those movies where you might have to pause it because you're laughing so hard you miss the next joke, because they do come really fast and furious, you know. The most underrated gem of the whole movie is Maureen Stapleton, who plays Johnny's mom, who has some of the most caustic zinger one-liners in the whole film, and she throws them out so professionally that sometimes you're shocked that did she really say that? You know, at one point she just leans in, she goes, "Does she know I go both ways?" And you're like, what? And it was a real coup getting an actress of her caliber to play that role, you know. She has the greatest line at the beginning where she goes, "Welcome to the Lower East Side. It really sucks." It's great. Great movie. There's some fun shots of vintage footage in it where Johnny says all the immigrants were forced to spend at least 90% of their time outside of their apartments. But what a great cast! And I'm gonna cheat and look at the Wikipedia page just so I don't miss anybody. Michael Keaton, Joe Piscopo. Now, I watched the Saturday Night Live special the other day, all 4.5 hours if you include the red carpet. Oh my God. The Saturday Night special was the perfect representation of an actual episode of Saturday Night Live. It went on too long, just like all of their bits. They never know how to end bits. They just go on too long and die. But Joe Piscopo was on for like 3 seconds with his Sinatra impression. And what a weird deal. Like, you look at Joe Piscopo, and he's a funny guy. He had a lot of great moments on SNL. But, like, what happened? How come he never had a movie career? Like, you look at his movie list, his filmography, and it says he's in King Kong, but I don't know that movie well enough to know. King Kong, and then Johnny Dangerously, and then Wise Guys, another mob movie, and then Dead Heat. That's with Treat Williams, where Treat Williams is dead, and he comes back from the dead to. It's just dumb. Like, it's just dumb. But Piscopo never got the break that a lot of the other guys got, which is weird because in Johnny Dangerously, he is fantastic as Danny Verman. Like, he's just really good. My father put me on a hook once. It's a recurring theme with him. It's very funny. He has a line that you wouldn't put in a movie today, ever. He pulls out a gun so big, and he looks and he says, "It shoots through schools." They would never, ever have that joke. And isn't that why older movies are fun to watch? Because you see stuff that today would be shocking, And the stuff that's shocking today is just gross. Instead of being like, wow, I can't believe they did that. It's like, ooh, I can't believe they did that. Mary Lou Henner as the female lead. What do you say about Mary Lou Henner? I had such a crush on Mary Lou Henner from Taxi. Oh my God, she's so good looking. If you want to see Mary Lou Henner, you should watch Burt Reynolds' The Man Who Loved Women. That's all I'm going to say. If you're a fan of Mary Lou Henner, you should just watch The Man Who Loved Women. Not just women. Anyways. Peter Boyle is in it. Peter Boyle as the head of the crime boss. He's great. He has a great line where after Maroney and his gang try to blow him up with a package, he stumbles out of the bathroom and he's like, "Okay, I'm standing here with my dork in my hand." And he's like, no, it's just the pull chain from the toilet. Oh yeah. You gotta love Peter Boyle. I wasn't a fan of Everybody Loves Raymond, but it doesn't matter because Peter Boyle was in Young Frankenstein, and that's a free pass for eternity. When Peter Boyle got to heaven, Charlie Chaplin met him at the gate and said, "Welcome, you belong here in the comedy greats, right this way." Oh, that's Buster Keaton. Yeah, come on in. You know what I mean? Griffin Dunn is in it. Love Griffin Dunn. This is before After Hours, but after American Werewolf in London. Dom DeLuise. It's funny, Dom DeLuise is on the poster, and he's got pretty high billing, but he's only in one scene. But that shows you, like, at the time, Dom DeLuise was a big star. And that just seems so weird, because I bet if you went out to a mall with a clipboard and asked kids or adults who Dom DeLuise was, I don't think you'd get anyone who knew who he was. Like, he's just one of those stars where his movies aren't considered classics and he's just faded away. Like, he's not Clark Gable. He's not Chris Farley. But at the time, Dom DeLuise was one of the biggest comedic actors in the world after all those movies he did with Burt Reynolds. And if anybody knows where I can get the Burt Reynolds movie The End without having to pay through the nose, I'd love to get a copy of it. That's the movie where he tries to kill himself. It's Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, Dom DeLuise. Well, of course it is. Of course those people are in it. Danny DeVito is in it. And Danny DeVito and Marilu Henner complete the Taxi reunion. DeVito's great in it. He's the district attorney. And you know what? It's funny. I was watching this film, and it's weird to look and see, like, every once in a while you'll come across a joke so dated, so cemented in its place in history that any microsecond outside of it, and you don't get the joke. And when Danny DeVito's character is killed in the bar, what happens is Keaton, Johnny Dangerously, knows that DeVito's going to do something bad to his brother. So Keaton meets him in a bar and buys him a beer. And when he gets up, DeVito looks at the brand of the beer and screams because a bull bursts through the wall, and basically tramples him to death. And you know what? For a lot of people that are, younger or didn't watch as much television as I did, that scene makes zero sense. But you know what? In the context, it's so brilliant and so ridiculous. It's a parody of the Schlitz malt liquor commercials of the time. They used to drink Schlitz malt liquor, and the mascot of the company was a bull. So when you drank Schlitz malt liquor in a bar, a bull would burst through the wall and everybody would go running. Like, they ran those ads a lot. So they're basically right in the middle of the movie, without really blatantly showing the product, they're doing that ad. And it's an interesting and brave way to get rid of that character. And you know what? I bet, again, remember, this is right before the home video revolution, or the home video, just explosion. So these movies were meant to be seen in the theater, and nobody gave a second thought to either video release monies or TV rights. They were almost afterthoughts. Like, nowadays, that's so bizarre. But back in the day, movies were made to be seen in the theater at the time they were made. And Johnny Dangerously was not a big tentpole movie, so they figured people would see it, laugh, and that would be the end of it. But when movies started gaining traction in home video, and people were renting films over and over again and breathing new life into movies. Now, we were still years away from an actual home video release saving a movie so much that it'd get a sequel. That wouldn't happen really until Austin Powers. I know it seems crazy it took that long, but there were probably some smaller examples here and there, but that was the real big boom. And then for DVD, it was Family Guy. Family Guy was canceled. The DVD sales were so enormous, Fox was like, we should just make more. We can make a lot of money off this guy. But back in the day, Johnny Dangerously, one-time viewing, and people who went in the theater, that Schlitz malt liquor commercial was still playing on TV screens, so it was very timely, very timely. And it's weird to see movies do that, because I don't think they do that really much anymore, because they're very cognizant now that a film has an eternal shelf life. So putting in something that dated, although, maybe I'm wrong, because I just went and saw Dumb and Dumber 2, and there was that big fat woman from Honey Boo Boo was in it. I don't follow that. I only know it because of the soup. So I was only tiny aware of who that woman was, but why would you put her in your movie? What a weird you're locking it into place. And it's not like when you're locking a movie into place through technology, because there's no way around that. When somebody in a movie pulls out a giant cell phone, that was state of the art at the time. That's not your fault. But putting in a cameo of somebody like another example, forget Honey Boo Boo's mom, the human thumb, but look at like the awful Cat in the Hat movie, which you probably have never seen, and I would not recommend it to anybody. But it has a left field cameo from Paris Hilton. Like at one point, the Cat in the Hat is at a disco dancing with Paris Hilton. Why? Why is that there? Who thought this was a good idea? Who's getting payola for this? And that I'm not using those examples to say that Dangerously screwed up by doing it, because they didn't. They took a risk, and that was what you did at the time. They don't take risks anymore. Looking again, the next big name that you care about is Alan Hale Jr. as the desk sergeant. And this is great because Alan Hale Jr. is so ingrained into pop culture as the skipper on Gilligan's Island that to see him in a movie is really cool, And it's also a little startling because it's like, oh my God, he was still alive at that point. Because when you watch those old shows, you just assume everybody's gone, even though that 90% of the Brady Bunch is still around, and Marianne and Ginger from Gilligan's Island are still around. I think Ginger's still around. Most of the rest of them are gone, though. Like, we lose these entire cast to time, But there he is, like big as life, calling all cars. And he has arguably the funniest sequence of the whole movie, where Johnny has broken out of prison with a fun cameo by Joe Flaherty. I love Joe Flaherty. Not only was he on SCTV, but he's the Western Union guy in Back to the Future 2. Hey now. But when Johnny breaks out of prison, everybody's looking for him. So they have a callback to a line of dialogue where Mary Lou Henner said she liked shelf paper and they were going to lead a normal life. So the car is covered in shelf paper. And every time the cops make a positive ID, they rip the shelf paper up to make the car look different. It's a brilliant sequence. And what's interesting about it is that when I remembered the scene, I thought there was a lot more action shots of that. But watching it just the other day, I'm amazed that the car is just being shook on a soundstage. Like there's no driving shots of them in the car with the wacky duckies or the stripes or anything like that. And it's like funny how good editing and good directing can fool your brain into seeing something that it didn't. Isn't that interesting? Like the same way that you never see Gwyneth Paltrow's head in the box, and most audiences left firmly convinced that they had seen it because of that one quick subliminal frame of Gwyneth Paltrow's face superimposed over the box. But you never see a bloody head. You don't need to. Your imagination is 10,000 times worse than a prop in a box. Same way when Beetlejuice says, "Can I be scary?" and he turns around and his face erupts. You don't need to see it. It's funnier if you don't see it. Nothing's more terrifying or imaginative than the human brain. But no, Johnny's Dangerously's a solid film. I would recommend this if you're a fan of movies. It has a lot of really funny setups and payoffs, and they're not afraid to make jokes that they don't make anymore. Really sharp barbs at people. And funny stuff like when DeVito takes Griffin Dunn in his house, and suddenly it's a game show, and all that. You see all the stuff he can win if he just plays ball with the mob, and it's just a clever movie. You can see it's all shot on the back lot. The set of the club, the Art Deco club, is gorgeous, and not to hammer a point home, but when Mary Lou Henner is doing her torch song, and every actress worth her salt wants a torch scene, because there's nothing sexier than a club scene where guys are drinking and smoking and women are looking to the door, and suddenly the band kicks in, the spotlight turns on, and there is, for whatever movie you're watching, the most beautiful woman in the club, and she owns the place by singing a song. You know, it's Jessica Rabbit. It's Madonna in Dick Tracy. It's Jennifer Connelly in Dark City. And for, you know, I think I've gone into length before in episodes that hardcore pornography and nudity and all that doesn't do it for me, you know. I like class, you know, and not that, you know, porn stars aren't classy, you know. Every woman's got to do what you got to do. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying that the mystery, the hint of the leg, if you've listened to the Chasing Amy episode, it's confidence. Confidence is what makes a woman sexy. And when a woman stands up there at that microphone in a club full of women dressed to the nines and all eyes are on her and she can own it, that's what it's about. I mean, look at Michelle Pfeiffer, Fabulous Baker Boys. You know, this is a cinema trope that's been since nearly day one. And it never fails to strike a chord. And there's a scene where there's a moment during her torch song where Mary Lou Henner dives onto a piano and does this little flip over and kicks her legs up. And I'm telling you, it is beyond sexy. Like, it is the epitome. Like, it's sexy. You know, there's a reason in The Mask when Cameron Diaz comes out and does the torch song sequence that Jim Carrey's character turns into the wolf from the old Tex Avery cartoons. I mean, because it's just, it's ingrained in most males, most heterosexual males' psyche that this is sexy, you know? And I've seen live torch singers. I watched Dita Von Teese one time live at a supper club. So I've sought it out in real life once again, trying to make the movies tangible. Not that I got to touch Dita, mind you. Although I do have a Polaroid I took with her at a shop one time. But no, there are a bunch of scenes in Johnny Dangerously that are, even though like it's a goofy comedy, you can tell that it's expensive, you know. This is before CGI, obviously, so the sets are real, the club is real, Maroney's gambling hall is all real with real people. It's a fun movie. You know, I picked this movie up off of eBay for like $5 shipped. So it's not even an expensive movie. If you haven't seen Johnny Dangerously, you should check it out. It's well worth looking at. It's a great snapshot of mid-'80s comedy, what people found funny at that time. And again, like Airplane, the reason it works is that the characters are never goofing. Like, they're taking it seriously. You know, that's the hallmark of good comedy, is that every once in a while Keaton does look at the camera, but that's okay because the rest of the time he is firmly cemented in the scene, and all the other actors that surround him are playing it for real. Even though Maureen Stapleton is spewing awfulness, she's committed to it. And that's why it's funny. The commitment is what makes it funny. So check it out. And again, apologies to Michael for not getting this out sooner. You're already owed a third one, so I'm going to watch another movie for you. We have some more Patreon pledgers coming up. Hendel wants me to watch Pump Up the Volume. So I'm going to do a Pump Up the Volume episode with my tribute to Christian Slater's Happy Harry Hardon pirate radio character. And got a lot to say about that movie. That was a movie I saw in the theater and then a lot on Laserdisc. Not to discredit Johnny Dangerously. I just discovered it later and enjoyed it a lot. And it's nice to venture out of my comfort zone in movies every once in a while. You know, nowadays I don't have any. I'll watch any movie. You know, I have no. I don't care any movie at all. I've even sat through Twilight and New Moon. Even though my wife hit me the whole time. Why are you laughing? Because it's not funny? It's not supposed to be funny? Because it is. Why is this so funny? Anywho, I got to wrap it up. I'm not 100% yet, but I'm getting there. So we'll cut this off a little short. Normally I go to an hour or a little over, but I'm not, whatever. I want to thank you to everybody who's listening. It was nice meeting some of you at the Theme Park Adventure Mixer at Don the Beachcombers. Thanks to everybody who's listening. Talia and John who share episodes. Rick and Johanna who listen and then text me separately with random non sequiturs that I have to think about. Like, what are they referring to? Oh, that the episode, right? Because he's always one or two behind. Thank you to everybody who pledged on Kickstarter. That ends on Saturday. If you'd like a signed copy of my book or even an opportunity to make a cameo in book 4, you can check out Kickstarter, The Infinite Backward. Our Patreon page, thank you to everybody who's pledged on Patreon. We have some fulfillments that we're going to get to in a couple of weeks to really just burn those off and say thank you to everybody who's supporting the show. Thank you to people who supported my bizarre time box experiment. I have time boxes. If you'd like a time box, which is a box time machine that allows you to go back in time through pop culture, you can get one for only $9.10, which is cheaper than Loot Crate or any of the other subscription services. That's $9.10 shipped to you. What a bargain. It's a box of pop culture stuff from my personal collection. It's a fun way to support the show. Check out our 91 Reasons Facebook page to find out how to get one, or leave us a comment on Podomatic and I will help you out there as well. If you go to YouTube, please check out my friend Robbie's comedy sketch channel called Q11. That's Q11 TV on YouTube. Q11 TV. He's got some funny stuff. He's a very talented guy. Check out themeparkadventure.com to find out when the next mixer is if you want to hang out. I will also be, thanks to the Kickstarter going over and meeting its goal, I will have a table at WonderCon this Easter weekend in Anaheim. I will be showcasing all 3 of my books and also the podcast. So if you're a fan, if you listen, please look us up and say hi and let us know. I'll also try to bring some time boxes there if you'd like to pick one of those up. Just a fun way to support the show. If you don't have any money, that's great too, because you know what? I don't have any money. If you don't have any money, you want to support the show, we appreciate you 1,000%. Go over to iTunes and leave us a review. It doesn't cost anything, and it helps our listings in how iTunes puts us in a search engine, and hopefully one day we'll make the iTunes landing page, because that's where you get all your hits. Podcasts I'm listening to right now, I'm enjoying the Gilbert Gottfried podcast, Diz Geek podcast, The Sweep Spot, the Chive podcast, all kinds of podcasts. I'm a huge podcast fan, Season Pass. I know Doug right now is working on the Trapped episode, which will be, I think, his longest episode ever. So I both congratulate him and apologize for sending him so much material for that. But look for that soon. I'll post a link on the 91 Reasons page just because it's interesting if you want to hear about the other side of what I do, because I don't talk a lot about the theme park side on this show. That's not what this is about. If you have a movie that you'd like me to watch, go to our Patreon page and find out how to pledge, support the show, and get me to watch a movie. Coming up, reviews for Michael Bondi again, because he's a big supporter of the show. Hindle's Pump Up the Volume. Somebody named Vriska from the Homestuck wants me to watch some Homestuck, so I will do that with my co-hosts. And Patrick, who has a birthday coming up at the end of March, wants me to watch Food Fight, one of the worst films ever made in the last 5 or 6 years, and I cannot wait to sit down and watch it. It's not even available on DVD. I have to watch it on Amazon Instant. So we will seek these movies out. We will dig them up, and we will expose them to the sunlight and let you gaze upon their brilliance or their idiocy, depending on the film. In the case of Johnny Dangerously, brilliant. You should watch this movie. you should support this movie by checking it out. And let me know if you find the spot. Take a screen grab of the potatoes so I can go, those are the potatoes that I ate. I am Jeff Tucker. I am the voice of 91 Reasons. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of, what did I just say? Yes, I said it already, 91 Reasons.
We're all alone, no chaperone can get our number. The world's in slumber, let's misbehave. There's something wild about you, child, that's so contagious. Let's be outrageous, let's misbehave.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?